Aha, there we go. And we're live. Testing, testing. One, two, three. Got green for the sound. Sorry about that, folks. We were having bother getting on there. Stuck in just a permanent loop of a black screen for some reason. Just about made it at 2200 there. It's 2201. So I'll say hello, everybody. Thanks very much for joining me. My name is Dr. Sloan. Welcome to my science fiction station. And tonight's episode, we're going to look at chapter 28 of Children of Dune. Pardon me. Yeah, if anybody's out there, say hello, folks. Sorry about that. We're getting a few technical difficulties with YouTube lately. Nothing's changed really at our end. But yes, I hope everybody can hear me okay. And as test, yeah, there we go. I've got a bit of a green light. Microphone's not quite in the same place as usual. There we go. Hopefully that's a bit better. We were meant to have a look at chapter 29 tonight as well, because they're two short chapters, but we're not going to do that. And that's for a particular reason, excuse me, which is simply I've got a chunk of the work done, but I've hit a wall in terms of trying to find something out for you. I'm a bit tenacious about this kind of stuff, so I've been researching and researching and researching, and I still have a bit more to go. So it's just particularly in relation to something that's said in chapter 29. Pardon me, our next chapter with Ganima. I said I've been scribbling away at the notes and stuff on it, but in that chapter, there's a couple of things that I need to have a look at. Pardon me. And it's basically to do with Sennacherib. Now, where's my copy of the book? Bear with me, folks. We're a bit disorganized today. Do as usual. But it's a thing I think that's dumbfounded a few people online as well. But it's a reference to a priestess of Jove captured in Assyria by Sennacherib, and I want to know what that's about. So I know a reasonable amount about Sennacherib, etc. And I've started investigating. There is something there. Pardon me. And I ended up reading a few other things. So at the minute, I've been investigating in relation to that comment, things like the Old Testament. Sennacherib's in there. Herodotus is in there. Not too much. And I've been looking at a few sort of possible female candidates within the ancient world to try and make sense of that little thing. But it's why I'm not running with chapter 29 tonight, is because I've kind of come to it's not quite a wall. I think I'm making progress. As I said, I'm sifting through the problem, trying to look at some ancient sources, and I've actually kind of had a lot of fun doing it. I was reading through the Jewish Encyclopedia as well, reading a bit of Lord Byron. So I've basically been trying to absorb everything I can about Sennacherib to try and figure out a reference in chapter 9, which seems to be one that's a bit of a mystery. There's Cynthia. Cynthia, well, the other thing that I've been reading, Cynthia, it was the article that you sent me. I'll say hello, everybody, very quick in a wee second. From Semiramis of Babylon to Semiramis of Hammersmith. I've been working my way through this as well, just to sort of get a wee bit of a sense of things and stuff like that. But I'm looking at some candidates, and they don't line up. They don't line up with Sennacherib in terms of dates, etc. But hey, Doc, what's the name of the priestess of regarding Sennacherib? That's what I want to know. I'll ask my husband if he can help. Fantastic, Cynthia. Yes, indeed. We're looking at the ancient Assyrians, aren't we? There's a few possible candidates. And I've been doing a lot of reading on it, and hopefully that's why I said I'm not going to run the chapter 29 tonight. I've already, as you can see, I've already got the notes and all started and stuff like that. But this is it's an allusion to something. We have a few other terms in chapter 29 as well. They've been no problem at all. But it's actually nice to hit a little bit of work like this, and I've actually I haven't been sleeping too well lately with my little sleep disorder, but I've been absolutely absorbed in this stuff and reading away about it. There's another where would we be here? Let me see. Sennacherib's not mentioned too much in Herodotus. He gets a wee bit, just one page, pretty much. Semiramis pretty much doesn't get too much herself. In fact, there's another queen, Nitocris, who's like, I think 5 generations later. Now these are two pretty famous kind of queens from the ancient world. I'm not sure what Frank's referring to in that. Jouf, I know where that is as well. That's in northern Arabia, etc., etc. So I'm kind of on the trail, if you like, and I'm really enjoying being on the hunt. But unfortunately, it's just one of those things that I'm fascinated by, and I'm not prepared to give it up. And the whole point of doing this kind of stuff is to actually figure these things out for you guys and for myself. So it's really nice to hit a problem. I love a good problem. The more awkward a problem, the better. But basically, I'm looking through any kind of. I mean, I was even reading. Oh goodness, what was I reading today? Just haven't read it in years. I actually read it to one of my students, just because I was explaining him my problem there. What was it I'm thinking on? Sorry, hang on. Aye, that's it. That's sorry. Just had to read the destruction of Sennacherib, Lord Byron's poem, which is a great poem. Haven't read that in long. I've even had a wee kind of nosy around that. But it's an interesting little thing, and I'm working on it, folks. So I'll quickly check your comments and hellos. There's Carlos Casella saying, "Hey Doc, hi Carlos, thank you very much for joining us as always." Sootpot, howdy Doc, howdy Sootpot, good to see you, sir. I hope you're keeping well. Chasing off the men on the white coats. So this is, "Hey Doc," and of course that's lovely. Thank you very much, Cynthia. I'd appreciate that if anyone can help with this. What's the name of the priestess regarding Sennacherib? Priestess of Jouf. Sorry, isn't it? Hang on. I keep doing that. I keep saying the word jowl today, and I was quoting. The reason why was something to do with quoting Shakespeare earlier, or something from The Tempest. I can't remember. Was it something like jowls or dewlap, like a bull? That's I'm swapping things over. Sorry, it's Jouf, isn't it? So yeah, I'm going to keep at it, folks. Anyway, there's Julian Thompson saying, "Hi Doc, hi all, hi Julian, good to see you. Thank you very much for joining us." Support's going laughing out there. Yeah, so I don't want to run with 2 chapters tonight because the stuff that we're trying to figure out, I haven't got there yet. But I'm really enjoying the hunt, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed. There's occasionally the odd thing, but Frank's in a pre-internet age, and where he gets his information from. I was having to read through the Jewish Encyclopedia today. I remember having a wee nosy at that way back. That's where I got my pictures of Abraxas coins and things like that within the PhD. So the great thing, there's stuff all over on Sennacherib, and I'm trying to line this up with what Frank's describing in the book. But we're going to, if there's a real individual, Frank has a source for it. Hopefully, we'll find it, and then we'll be able to explain it. Yes, indeed. Yeah, fun. There we go. The drum's my destination. Excellent handle. The drum's my destination. Saying hello. Nice to see you. Thank you very much for joining us. So yeah, it's not going to be because we've got a wee set of short chapters. The idea is to run them in pairs. Let me just quickly check here before we get cracking. So this was to be 28 and 29. Next one's 29. I wonder, could I double it up with 30? Let me just see how big chapter 30 is, because I've got most of the work done for it, except for this. It's 5, isn't it? So it's 1, 2, 3. No, we'll not be doing that. So we'll get chapter 29 up on it. So I'd say that there'll be stuff to talk about that might, hopefully, that will pad out the episode, if you like. But at the same time, it's nice for me to get a couple of wee short ones. It's a bit of a break, but I've been working away at it. And we've got a full set of notes here for chapter 28, so we'll run with that tonight. I've called this one the Aristocrats, or the Aristocrats in the still suit. I've got a couple of problems with this chapter, and there's a few mistakes in it, but they're to do with Frank's writing. And I don't often do this, but I've made a little comment at the top here that I don't think the writing is particularly good in this chapter. There's a few, and I've been starting to notice a few things, and I'm actually considering the fact that we know that there are parts of this book written at the same time, same with Dune Messiah as Dune. At the same time, we've got many years moving between these books, and getting to the point where we're going to tie up all of those threads, if you like. And I think it's possibly sometimes that some stuff that we have here, whenever Frank's been writing this, has come to older pieces of writing, if you see it. I mean, you can tell sometimes that there's a slightly different style. On the flip side of that, the next chapter actually has a couple of wee problems in it, but actually has some really, really good writing in it. I'll point it out whenever we see it, but there's a couple of problems within it. Nothing major. But in terms of Frank's usual business, I thought this chapter was a little bit off, if you know what I mean. Pardon me. And drum's my destination, the bass is my nation. Joseph Smith, Dune fan saying, howdy, Joseph, how you doing? Thanks very much for joining us. I think everything's okay, and we're just getting cracking. So let me just I've got the wrong chapter here in the book. Let's see. There we go, just to check. Thanks. Yeah, there's a big problem right away within the book. Let's have a wee look at it. And I dare say that this is probably a thing with these editions here. But our epigraph, okay, let's go. Governments, if they endure, always tend increasingly toward aristocratic forms. No government in history has been known to evade this pattern. And as the aristocracy develops, government tends more and more to act exclusively in the interests of the ruling class, whether that class be hereditary royalty, oligarchs of financial empires, or entrenched bureaucracy. Pardon me. This comes from Politics as Repeat Phenomenon from the Bene Gesserit Training Manual. So this is a Bene Gesserit observation. Governments tend to head towards aristocratic forms. Aristocracy is the rule of the best, is what it means, if you like, for want of a better word. It's one of Plato's 5 types of governments that he discusses. Let me see. Funnily enough, what was the type I was looking at? That was an interesting one. Having a look at Semiramis today. Just different types of governments, but Semiramis being used as an exemplary for a female governor, a female ruler in the ancient world. Herodotus seems to think her later descendant, Nicritus, was much more important. But at the same time, the interesting thing reading this article that Cynthia told me about, by the way, I'll just read it, the title to it. It's called From Semiramis of Babylon to Semiramis of Hammersmith by Julia M. Asher Grave. It looks at the Roman attitude towards her, where she's often presented in terms of derogative remarks about what we would call a gynocracy, which is the rule of women. But basically, what we're talking about within this chapter here is aristocracy. The rule of the best. It's that kind of, I don't know if you want to, what do you think of aristocracies? Pardon me. The Greek word aristos is the word for best. Kratos is a personification of power, if you like. And it's that part of the word where you get your democracy, all of those kind of things. Deme is an interesting word to translate, by the way. It's got lots of different meanings. So if you think of the word democracy, it's worth checking out, breaking it up into its 2 parts and having a look at the word deme, because it can mean the people, it can mean a division of 10. all sorts of things. Quite an interesting word. I just scribbled down a few here: aristocracies, oligarchies, plutocracies, timocracies, stratocracies, democracies. Plato's 5 types of government: aristocracy, democracy, oligarchy, timocracy, and tyranny. Basically, the way they would be considered is aristocracies are ruled by law and order. Democracies are ruled by liberty and equality. This is what you'll get this off Wikipedia. Oligarchies are ruled by wealth and market-based ethics. Democracies are ruled by honor and duty, and a tyranny is ruled by fear, such as a despot. Though, as I always like to point out, the word tyrant technically is an usurper, not necessarily a despot. But that's those types of government. Frank likes saying always. Oh, I missed a couple of comments there, but let me see. Just hi, well, Dave, thank you. And your lovely self says, Joseph, I'm good, thank you, Joseph. And Jonathan Frank likes saying always, it presents us with an absolute, doesn't it? Which is what I've got written at the top, and I've also written next to it. No government in history has been known to evade this pattern. I've written bollocks next to that. I don't think that's true. And if you're identifying individual governments, no, it's not true at all. However, what they're saying is that regardless of what type of government, if you like, it moves towards aristocratic forms. I disagree with that as well. Depends on what you think of the word and what the word actually, what the word means and what we think the word means. What's that really famous joke is called isn't it the Aristocrats? I think most comedians have a version of it, don't they? But technically, yeah, and all aristocracy is the rule of the best. Oligarchy is a rule of the few. If you like, we tend to use the term with kind of Russian oil tycoons and this kind of thing. We tend to call them oligarchs, don't we? But essentially, it's the rule of the few. A plutocracy is the rule of the wealthy. Timocracy, rule of the property, if you like. A stratocracy is the rule of generals. And of course, a democracy is the rule of the people, isn't it? I just thought I'd throw a few types of government down there. I was having a good think about that, and I thought of several examples in history where that's not true. Of course, it's being presented to us as politics as a repeat phenomenon. Bene Gesserit training manual that things will just keep happening and happening, etc. But what we've got is in this chapter, the reason why I call it the Aristocrats is we have the aristocrats, an aristocratic family, in a sense. And what we also have here is 3 characters who very, very much mirror the little triumvirates that we saw at the beginning of Dune. For example, we had the triumvirate of I suppose. Jessica, the guy, Reverend Mother Gaius, Helen O'Hame, and Paul. Whenever we went to the Harkonnens, and it's particularly the Harkonnens that I'm thinking on, then the little meetings and plans and all of that kind of thing that we got to see, it was the Baron, Peter de Vries, and Fade. Of course, Raban was not involved in that in the book at all. That's they brought him in the films, didn't they? So this chapter, it reminds me of those interactions. It's part of what Frank likes to do is we've got these reiterations, repetitions of themes, things very similar that characters are doing again and again. And I think this is one. And this very much reminds me of, the Baron's chat, if you like, to Peter and young Fade right at the beginning of Dune. And there's other elements within that, not just the fact that there's the 3 of them having a natter about how to plot their plans and stuff like that, but there's other elements within this chapter that I think point to that. Okay, right. Let's pile in, folks. It's a dialogue heavy chapter again. It probably will go quite quickly, I imagine, but I've not got too many things to talk about. I've made me notes where they are, but we do have a bunch of problems in relation to meaning within this chapter. So we start off here. This is Farad'n speaking. Why does he make us this offer? Farad'n asked. That's most essential. He and the Bashar Tyekanik stood in the lounge of Farad'n's private quarters. Wensicia sat at one side, and a low blue divan, almost an audience rather than participant. Sorry, on a low blue divan, almost an audience rather than participant. She knew her position and resented it, but Farad'n had undergone a terrifying change since that morning when she'd revealed their plots to kill him. Now that's got to be a mistake. I really want to know that what's in your books, folks. Pardon me. What we have prior to this, what does he make? Why does he make us this offer? That's most essential. A little bit of the scene setup, if you like, where it's him and Bashar and his mother in the lounge of his private quarters. Wensicia sat at one side on a low blue divan, almost an audience rather than participant. So there's no mention of anybody here prior to this. He that we're referring to as Duncan Idaho. She knew her position and resented it, but Farad'n had undergone a terrifying change since the morning when she'd revealed their plots to kill him. Now, I've written that makes no sense. I've written something else next to it. It's not too polite. And I've had to ask the question, is that reference to Duncan Idaho? And if it is, then that's pretty sloppy writing. I don't know what you guys think. My text says, since that moment she revealed their plots to him. Plots to him. You don't have to kill him. Does that? So I've got here their plots to kill him. And that makes no. So you guys don't. To kill him is plots. Revealed their plots to him. So the word kill. So let me see. Just check who's. Absence. Sorry, I'll get back to you in a second. Sootpot, since my text says, since that morning when she'd revealed their plots to him. Julian's him when she revealed their plots to him. Right. Oh, right. Yeah, it makes no sense at all. Right. Kill is a superfluous word there. Let me just fix this. I was really wondering about that. I actually thought the word that was wrong there was the him. That there was if there as much as the word kill there, but it's the word kill shouldn't be there. Oh, right, excellent. Thank you very much. That confused the heck out of me. I'll put a word there. Let's see, kill and I'm just going to go with British editions. I think for now anyway. Right, thank you very much. That makes a hell of a lot more sense. Because if they'd revealed their plots to kill him, I don't think they lived very long, to be honest with you. You know, hey son, we were hoping to. It made no sense to me whatsoever. Thank you so much, folks. Yeah. I'm going to sorry, no kill. No, put that. Sorry, just to make sense of this no kill word in paragraph 2. Right. Gordon Bennett, that really does change the meaning of the thing, doesn't it? Thank you so much. Right, I'll read that again, folks. I apologize. These we talk about this a lot for anybody who's new here. There are so many mistakes in these books that they are an embarrassment to publishing, quite frankly. And it's certain copies, but we have certain good copies, if you like. So it mainly seems to be the British editions. I don't know if it stretches to other countries such as Canada and stuff like that, or even Australia. I'm not sure. But the Berkeley editions of the book seems to be the solid good ones. Thank you so much, everybody. Very quickly, I'll just catch your comments again. I'll read this again properly first, and then I'll go to the comments. So Wensicia sat at one side on a low blue divan, almost an audience rather than participant. She knew her position and resented it, but Farad'n had undergone a terrifying change since that morning when she'd revealed their plots to him. That makes much more sense. Thank you so much. Now, I'll just quickly catch those comments. Where are we? Zippo saying these absolutes are often in training manuals or such. Maybe they're a simplified presentation to students and such. Yeah, possibly. but Frank's very much into warning us about. So I think he does drop these in quite a lot, very deliberately, But yes, there are often we find them in the epigraphs, don't we? Which come from all sorts of documents. Politics is a repeat phenomenon. Yeah, absolutes. Always and never. If you're reading those two words, be suspicious. you know. And so they say my text. Yeah, sorry, that was just catching up to Cynthia's comment there. Since the morning when she revealed their plots to him, yeah, it gets confusing sometimes. This doesn't it? Julian Thompson also said, "I have when she revealed their plots to him." Good catch, says Sootpot. Yeah, things like that just jar with me so badly. To be honest with you, Sootpot, but especially when we are annotating this thing, we are literally. I think we're finding them all, aren't we? It's I don't know how many you would notice. There's always a few mistakes in most books, but the amount of them in this book. But the other thing that seems to be of real interest is that they do damage to the story, don't they? Occasionally we get a single instance of a character's name and it's wrong. That's happened a couple of times. We get this where that's just changes everything, doesn't it? That one. Why is that word just magically appear in my book? I think again there must be something to do with master copies, etc. Anyway, that's the first of our little mistakes, folks. That's on we go. It was late afternoon at Corrino Castle, and the low light accented the quiet comfort of his lounge. A room lined with actual books, reproduced in plastino, with shelves revealing a hoard of player spools, data blocks, sugar wire reels, mnemonic amplifiers. There were signs all around this room was much used. Worn places on the books, bright metal on the amplifiers, frayed corners on the data blocks. There was only the one divan, but many chairs, all of them sensiform floaters, designed for unobtrusive comfort. Mm. So the sense is that, a bit like this place, all the books are used. There's nothing on for show, if you see what I mean. Everything's worn and just worn and made weak by overuse, if you see what I mean. I always find it interesting. I don't know if you go into some people's houses. Occasionally, some people are a bit funny about books, and that they use them to display. I don't know what it is. But if you ever go in and you're looking at somebody's books in their bookshelf, and not one of them has a single bend in the spine, there's something wrong there. I think that they are for display and not to be read. I think it's very bad. You can tell I'm a reader because just half my books fall to bits. I'm quite hard on books. Dear oh dear. But yes, indeed, and it seems so is young Farad'n here. Right. Now, Farad'n stood with his back to a window. He wore a plain Sardaukar uniform in grey and black, with only the golden lion claw symbol on the wings of his collar as decoration. He had chosen to receive the Bashar and his mother in this room, hoping to create an atmosphere of more relaxed communication than can be achieved in a more formal setting. But Tyekanik's constant, "my lord this" and "my lady that" kept them at a distance. I suppose he hasn't figured that lesson out, is that if he's that kind of leader, everybody technically is at a bit of distance from him, if you like. So he's trying to make them comfortable, if you like. What we've got on is a shift in power within this chapter. We talked about the other thing I was interested about is I think I've asked a question about it in a wee bit here, but it seems that Tyekanik has been invested in power at this point. He's in charge, and he is acting as the head of House Corrino. And the formality of Tyekanik is kind of he's not quite getting what he wants here in the setting, if you like. This is Tyekanik. "My lord, I don't think he'd make this offer were he unable to deliver," Tyekanik said. "Of course not. Wensicia intruded. Now, what you get here, and the intrusion, if you like, this is the sense that Wensicia is being pushed out um, by Farad'n, and Tyekanik will be taking Farad'n's side, if you like. Wensicia within this chapter is desperate to stay in, if you see what I mean. And it'll be interesting to see how we think of her responses here. She's trying to be of use here, I think, and she is being sidelined a bit. It's a question of, I suppose, how much and how much she's able to hang on, if you like. But certainly her son's attitude to her is quite frosty, I would say. Farad'n merely glanced at his mother to silence her, asked, "We've put no pressure on Idaho, made no attempt to seek delivery on the preacher's promise?" "None," Tyekanik said. "Then why does Duncan Idaho, not noted all of his life for his fanatic loyalty to the Atreides, offer now to deliver the Lady Jessica into our hands?" We're going to get a couple of comments about some people within this chapter about how they're seen, but noted. Duncan Idaho is noted. Later on, we're going to get the word notorious, or notoriety, with attached to the Lady Jessica. But the key words here are fanatic loyalty, and I just thought that fanatic was one of the qualities of the other week of Hasamir, of Farad'n's father. When we were looking at that connection to the to Hasamir Fenring, and we were also happy about, yes, that's the key to the no gene, really, isn't it? Let me see. Sorry, bear with me. That was 2 chapters ago, wasn't it? Dalek. There we go. So Farad'n's father, Dalek, was that it? Let me just check. Is complex, difficult to read. That reminded her herself had been related to Count Hasamir Fenring, and there'd been something of the dandy and the fanatic in both of them. So it's just the way Frank drops certain terms every night, the way he does that chapter upon chapter, if you like. So Duncan's possibly a fanatic in Farad'n's eyes here. These rumours, this is Wensicia, these rumours of trouble on Arrakis, Wensicia ventured. Unconfirmed, Farad'n said. It is possible that the preacher has precipitated this. Possible, Tyekanik said. But I fail to see a motive. He speaks of seeking asylum for her, Farad'n said. That might follow if these rumours, precisely, his mother said. Or it could be a ruse of some sort, Tyekanik said. We can make several assumptions and explore them, Farad'n said. What if Idaho had fallen into disfavour with his lady Alia? Now, I think assumptions are pretty dangerous things to make. I hate assumptions myself, and it's a bad thing to do, to assume certain things. Having to deal with a solicitor at the minute, not signing any of the contracts because within them he's made lots of assumptions about me and what I want him to do, and I don't want him to do any of it, and he assumed completely wrong, and his contract's worthless to me, because it won't be signed. But it's yes, indeed. So we got rumor. They don't quite know what's going on. They've got 2 dangerous people on their way looking for asylum, and they don't have all the info, so they're going to make some assumptions, run some thought experiments, I would say, probably here. So Tyekanik doesn't see the motive. They're looking for asylum. Exactly. There's your motive. Oh, could be a ruse, could be a trick, could be a trap. Certainly in this universe, that wouldn't be unexpected. We can make several assumptions and explore them, Farad'n said. What if Idaho had fallen into disfavour with his lady Alia? So that's assumption number 1. That might explain matters, Wensicia said. But she's cut off here. No word yet from the smugglers, Farad'n interrupted. Why can't we? Transmission is always slow in this season, Tyekanik said. and the needs of security. Now, I kind of wondered what that meant. Transmission of information slow in this season. And I wasn't sure if they meant seasonally. I suppose it's got to go between two places, hasn't it? But do they mean Solus Secundus? Are they referring to the smugglers on Arrakis? And I can't see possibly any reason whatsoever why a transmission would go slowly in a particular season, if you see what I mean. I can understand the needs of security, and that didn't quite make sense to me. It makes sense that it takes time maybe to get messages from the smugglers, but it was the explanation that seemed a bit weird. Yes, of course, but still, Farad'n Sugar said, I don't like our assumption. When Sissy says, well, don't be too quick to abandon it, when Sissy has said. All of these stories about Alia and that priest, whatever his name is, Jabba, Farad'n said. But the man's obviously, he's been a very valuable source of information for us, when Sissy has said. That's her interrupting him, cutting him off there. The little point that I make here is that Farad'n knows his name, and when Sissy either doesn't know his name or is pretending not to know. I don't think pretending ignorance here would serve Wensicia in any shape or form. The more information that she could supply to Farad'n, the more useful she'll be to him and to his counsel, if you like. Farad'n says, I was about to say that he's obviously a double agent, Farad'n said. How could he indict himself in this? He's not to be trusted. There are too many signs. I fail to see them, she said. He was suddenly angry with her defenses. Take my word for it, mother. The signs are there. I'll explain later. And I'm afraid I must agree, says Tyekanik. I'm afraid I must agree. Tyekanik said, sorry, apologies. I missed 2 words there. Or did I get, nope. Bear with me a wee second, folks. Tyekanik said, there we go. Now, when Sissy lapsed into hurt silence, how dared they push her out of hang on. Sorry, I'll tell you what, folks, this is one where because I'm not sleeping well at the minute, I'm making mistakes. Let me just check this again. When Sissy lapsed into hurt silence, how dared they push her? That's it. How dared they push her? There we go. Out of counsel like this, as though she were some light-headed fancy woman with no no, it's kind of just the thought process is cut off, if you like, by Farad'n's next words. We mustn't forget that Idaho was once a gullah. Farad'n said, the Tyelaxu. He glanced sideways at Tyekanik. Now, very quickly, I suppose, Farad'n is saying his mother is a bit intellectually vacant, I think, is the way to put it. He's getting angry with her when we get the sense that Javid's very obviously a double agent, not to be trusted, etc. She fails to see the problem with that. He's pretty much setting one side against the other, isn't he? And acting here, selling the information, but he's in contact with House Corrino. She doesn't get it. That makes him angry. Take my word for it. We'll explain it later. I'm afraid I must agree, says Tyekanik. Now, hurt silence there. How dared they push her out of counsel like this, as though she were some light-headed fancy woman with no... Now, I've written next to that, is she? As much as she's come across a certain way, I wouldn't say she's that light-headed. But she is a fancy woman, if you see what I mean. And I think, I don't know how much of what she's been up to lately with Tyekanik sort of carrying out her will, how much of it is sensible or, is a good question, I suppose. But is this as though she were some light-headed fancy woman. Is that a kind of reality for Wensicia? Not sure it is, to be honest. But we get to see how she's feeling there. We mustn't forget that Idaho was once a Gola, Farad'n said, the Tyelaxu. He glanced sideways at Tyekanik. That avenue will be explored. And I've written next that, Tyekanik said, I've written next that, so it hasn't been explored yet. They haven't looked into it. He found himself admiring the way Farad'n's mind worked. Alert, questing, sharp. And again, that's another word that we had used in the previous chapter, just like the word fanatic a couple of chapters back, questing. And again, I think that part of that is to show similarities between Farad'n and Leto, to be honest, I think, even though Leto's a good bit younger than him. Yes, the Tyelaxu, in restoring life to Idaho, might have planted a powerful barb in him for their own use. Now, would you excuse me a wee second, folks? I've got a very tickly nose and I need to blow it. I'll just mute this a wee second. There we go. There we go. That's bad. That's better. I was doing my nothing. Very ticklish. There we go. Have a mixed speech. Hi, have a mixed speech. Said Wensicia knew this would happen, but she didn't have a plan for how to keep herself in Farad'n's good graces. Pardon me. Here we go. Cynthia said, my text says he was suddenly angry with her denseness. Hang on. Right. Right, I've got anger is red. Number 15. Really? He was suddenly angry with her denseness, not defense. I've got defenses. Thank you, Cynthia. We went by that one, didn't we? Hang on a second. What's been done to these books? It's now the biggest mystery for me. I want to know. Let me see. There we go. Try and get it closer now. I'll hold it steady. There you go. Defenses. And you've got denseness. That makes more sense. He was suddenly angry. She's being stupid. Yes, indeed. Right. Bear with me. That needs fixing. That we angry with her defenses. Right. And it's denseness. So do I. I'm using a UK. You've got my text says he was suddenly angry with her denseness, not defenses. So do I. I'm using a UK edition too. What one are you using? Julian, I'm on the one I'm on is what's this? This is Golan's. That's the one I'm using. Golan's science fiction. I must have another. I've got more copies. I went with this one because of text size. I've got a few copies of it, but it has defenses in my copy. I was saying about this chapter not being particularly well written, but that one went by me. But thank you so much. Let me get that fixed here in my notes. Right, so dense, that makes much more sense. I mean, I accepted the word defenses. I thought there was more that she was doing a sort of verbal defense here, just that her tone, her words were being cautious, this kind of thing. That the response I failed to see them was some kind of feint or something, but clearly not. Right, unbelievable. Thank you so much. Denseness. I'm going to write that on the book here. Good golly. Again, changes its meaning completely, doesn't it? I just still don't understand how this is happening. Someone's adding words to a manuscript. It's look at the older manuscripts. How does this happen? Is it perhaps an attempt to edit it or something? And I don't know. And I think this book's the worst one so far. I think as we've gone through the Dune series, the least number of mistakes has probably been Dune, but there's been quite a few. The Howler in my copy, the 50th anniversary copy, is Peter de Vreed. That's just, but goodness, thank you for spotting that one. So Julie, I'm using a Golance from 2021. I can check my US edition. Yeah. Give me a wee second, folks. Let me see what I've got here. Children of Dune is what we're after. Here we come. Let's go. Children of Dune's 1. What have we got there? 2. There we go. There's another one. 3 different ones. How many more? How many of these have survived? Heretics. 1, 2, 3. What have we got? We got a goal. We've got the goal. I saw 4 different copies, right? Okay. Very quickly, and I should have a look online actually. Where are we? 20. Right. Let's have a wee quick nosy, folks, just to see. It's not. I'm on page 200 in mine. It shouldn't be too hard to find in these. My goodness, actually, that print looks a lot bigger. No, that's not as dark though. That's why. Let's see. Yeah, back. That's an interesting. Where are we? Can't be that far. Right, here we are. Sorry, folks, bear with me a second. Denseness, okay, denseness in this one. Right, what have we got here? This one, this is, what was these publishing house here? Is it Nels or something? New English Library. Probably my favorite cover of these ones. Called the writing, and this one's tiny. Right, bear with me a wee second, just to have a nose. It's worth a government. Here we are again. Right, I failed to see them. Defenses in this one. That's 2 defenses, 1 denseness. Let's have a look at this one. Yeah, children. There we go. Let's see. Assumptions. Defenses. I've got defenses in 3, and the only one that I have, denseness is this one. There we go, folks. Interesting, eh? Gordon Bennett. Honest to goodness. And I think, and thank you so much. You see, because that sort of made sense, but it wasn't. I went past it, Yeah, well spotted. Well spotted indeed. It's okay. It does change the meaning a lot, doesn't it? He's not happy with her denseness. And therefore, and to call someone dense, it's a wee bit. I always thought it's a wee bit harsher than calling someone stupid. A light-headed fancy woman. Does that what he thinks of her? Is that what she is? But he's not happy with her denseness. Oh, right. Gordon Bennett, thank you. He was suddenly angry with her denseness. Take my word for it, mother. The signs are there. I'll explain later. I'm afraid I must agree, said Tyekanik. We got it. Sorry, just trying to find out where we were there. Wensicia lapsed into hurt silence. How dare they push her out of council like this, as though she were some light-headed fancy woman with no... And then she's cut off. Sorry, we did get a wee bit further than that, didn't we? We mustn't forget that Idaho was once a Gola, Farad'n said. The Talaxi, and he glanced sideways along at Tyekanik. That avenue will be explored, Tyekanik said. He found himself admiring the way Farad'n's mind worked. Alert, questing, sharp. Yes, the Talaxi is restoring life to Idaho. In restoring life to Idaho, might have planted a powerful barb in him for their own use. But I failed to apprehend a Talaxi motive, Farad'n said. Now, again, that's the... previously, again, what they're investigating is what they previously said. We failed at what's the motive? Why? What's going on? Why would they do this? Tyekanik says an investment in our futures. Tyekanik said a small insurance for future favors. So I have a couple of wee notes here actually I've written. Just next to that, but I failed to apprehend a Talaxi motive. As far as I'm concerned, I think the Talaxi motive is the same as everybody else's within the Dune universe, is ultimately to be the power behind the throne, to control the throne. Because it's everybody else's desire, I think. I don't see that it makes them any different. I think how they would do that would be through face dancers, this kind of thing. An investment in our futures, Tyekanik said. A small insurance for future favors. So I got the sense from this that it's almost that the Talaxi are seen as a minor player within the Dune universe here. Certainly by House Corrino, I think. Large investment, I'd call it, Farad'n said. Dangerous, Wensicia said. And I've written down here, for whom? Yeah, Julia, sorry, just with the denseness there, Julia was saying that he's got the Golans from 2021, and the Ace Berkeley is my US edition, and it has denseness, and then denseness is what it's meant to be. So far we've had a plot to kill Farad'n by his mother, which doesn't exist, because of the word kill shouldn't be in the book, and now this one as well, that she's a bit dense. It makes sense, or at least from his viewpoint. But yeah, bizarro. Now, Farad'n had to agree with her. The Lady Jessica's capabilities were notorious in the Empire. After all, she'd been the one who trained Muad'Dib. Notorious is a great word, I love it, but it's to be noted for. A thing of notoriety, if you like. It is, and that's an interesting thing again in relation to what we were saying about the sort of the Bene Gesserit's abilities and things like that. The Lady Jessica's capabilities are, so it says it, were notorious. She's a thing of, possibly a thing of gossip and chat within the Empire. This deadly, deadly woman. After all, it's her that trained Muad'Dib. If it became known that we hold her, Farad'n said. Now here's another one for you. I've got Tyekanik going, yes, that's be a two-edged sword, Tyekanik said, but it need not be known. And I have that's be. So he's turned into Benny from Crossroads now. That's another mistake, isn't it? That's, I'm pretty sure, should be the thatted. Apostrophe D. I've got an apostrophe S. As I said, I thought we'd go pretty quick through this chapter. This chapter is loaded with mistakes. Let me see. If it became known that we hold her. So I even think that, because they don't hold her at the moment, if it became known that we held her, it should be more sense. Yes, that's be a 2S is what I've got. I take it it's that'll be. Thank you. This is getting silly. Um, isn't it? It's kind of it's start. There was a couple of times where I swore at a couple of these. I got frustrated to hell with just especially one name where spent the whole better part of a day trying to find that name, and it wasn't even the right name. It was misspelled. But it's getting to be kind of funny in a. It shouldn't be funny, but it is. I'm starting to laugh a bit there. Uh, I don't know. I don't know if anybody got the reference. That's BA2. There was it's an old British soap opera called, oh, what was it called? Crossroads. And there was a character in it who was called Benny, who wore a green woolly hat, and he was a bit mentally challenged, shall we say. But that's kind of reminded me of the way he talked. Um, that's BA2, and don't know if anybody remembers Benny from Crossroads, but that's whenever I read it, I stumbled on it. But makes a lot more sense. So they said in Dune Messiah, we learned that few in the old empire do understand the Twi'leks. Excuse me, their capacity and potential. House Corrino is no exception. I agree. I think everything about the Twi'leks is still very much in the background here. And the interesting thing is what we have learned a little bit about them is that, for example, they've managed to escape the worst prescriptions of the Butlerian jihad. There's certain planets, certain technologies, etc., that fringe, if you like, but they seem to get away with quite a lot. And yeah, they're fascinating. I think whenever we get to the Twi'leks, to explore them as a branch of humanity I think it's kind of shocking in many ways. So there we go. Sorry, another wee silly mistake. This is a short chapter too. And Carlos Gosses and the Twi'leks who definitely play the long game. I always think that they're pretty much one of the dominant players within the whole story. And I love that Frank doesn't even have them in the first book. We get the briefest mention of them and a little reference to them in the terminology that appear, and that's it. And they're not a player at all. The only thing that we can be sure that they've done within the first Dune book is that they're responsible for Piter. Pardon me. There we go. Sorry about that, folks. Touch of wind. Right. Yeah, that'll be a two-edged sword, Tyekanik said, but it need not be no. Let us assume, Farad'n said that we can. Let us assume, Farad'n said, that we accept this offer. What's her value? Can we exchange her for something of greater importance? Not openly, Wensicia said. I wrote next to that. That's a bit obvious, isn't it? Of course not. He peered expectantly at Tyekanik. That remains to be seen, Tyekanik said. So, which is a sort of non-committal and vague answer, isn't it? What's the value of the lady Jessica? If her abilities are notorious and she's trained Muad'Dib, then her value's bloody obvious to me. Extremely deadly. If she trained him, she can train my men. It's kind of obvious if this woman can kick the arse of a Sardaukar. I could do with her training my Sardaukar. I could do with her training my general. I could do with her training me. Her value's very obvious to me anyway in this. And if she is notorious for her capabilities and also, the general understanding of how the Bene Gesserit are trained and her ability to be a diplomat and a secretary of a great house, all of the things that she's done in the past, if you like, her experience. What's her value? It's can we exchange her for something of greater importance? So again, they're running hypotheticals, aren't they? They're making, let's make assumptions. Let us assume is what he's saying now that we accept this offer. What's her value to us? What can we do with her? What can we exchange for? What can we get for her? What's the trade-off? It can't be done openly since Wensicia, naturally, that kind of thing. What's her value remains to be seen, is what Tyekanik said. Again, the sense of what the characters are saying is not too obvious, I think, here. Farad'n nodded. Yes, I think if we accept, we should consider the Lady Jessica as money banked for indeterminate use. After all, wealth doesn't necessarily have to be spent on any particular thing. It's just potentially useful. So the Lady Jessica almost is capital, really, isn't it? It's an interesting way of looking at a person. Tyekanik says this. She'd be a dangerous captive, Tyekanik said. And that's the bit that I was kind of saying about that kind of goes going back to mirroring what we get in the first Dune book. This is the Baron's lesson to Piter and the Fate. Whenever they're discussing the downfall of House Atreides, Piter wants the Lady Jessica, and of course the Baron wants Paul. They want to capture them and own them and enslave them and do their work, their worst with these two. But the point is that the Baron, as much as he lusts after Paul, understands he's far too dangerous to keep. And the lesson that he gives to Piter, who wants to do all sorts of mad things to the Lady Jessica, is that she's far too dangerous to keep. We will not, we would not have these people as captives. They're just far too dangerous. And that's the Baron's assessment of the Lady Jessica and a 15-year-old Paul in Dune. So it reminds, again, a repetition, and it's Tyekanik sort of pointing out the same lesson. I think whenever we did that chapter, I called it the Baron's lesson. She's a very dangerous captive. In fact, I wouldn't hold her captive at all. I think I'd say that if be a guest in my house and my was it say me casa su casa, this kind of thing, whatever, be a guest here would be a much better way of treating this person. To give her any sense that she's a captive, I think would ultimately kick in those powers a bit more, and they'd be used against you, wouldn't they? So there's certainly interesting hypotheticals here, aren't they? Assumptions that they're making. And Farad'n says, there is that to consider, indeed. Farad'n said, I'm told that her Bene Gesserit ways permit her to manipulate a person just by the subtle employment of her voice. Told, so kind of, again, the use of voice. I'm told this. That's what I think voice's secret would be out. I think, or certainly wouldn't be a secret. I still think it would cause a lot more problems for the Bene Gesserit than anything, I think. So, yeah, and Wensicia adds here, or her body, Wensicia said. Irulan once divulged to me some of the things she'd learned. She was showing off at the time, and I saw no demonstrations. Still, the evidence is pretty conclusive that Bene Gesserits have their ways of achieving their ends. Were you suggesting, Farad'n asked, that she might seduce me? I quite like this bit. I mean, Wensicia merely shrugged. So I went yes with that. And then I'd say she's a little old for that, wouldn't you? Farad'n asked. With a Bene Gesserit, nothing's certain, replies Tyekanik there. I went that she, how old is Lady Jessica at this point? I reckon she was in her 50s. Probably, well, what I wrote was probably under 60 at this point. I kind of ran the numbers from the start of the book. And I just kind of went with the idea that she might be, just as a guess, not that I would know, that she might be early 20s when she ends up meeting Leto and having Paul. If you like, we can then add 15 years to bring her up to the start of June, and then we can add another 19 years. So that would kind of make her 35. If we added another 19 years to take her up to this point in the book, isn't that right? Yeah, 12 and 9. Oh, no, sorry, hang on. 12 years between that one and Messiah, and then 9 from that one to this one. Sorry, 21. With a 50, I'd argue that if she was 20 at the start of June, sorry, when she gave birth to Paul, if you like, that she'd probably go to 35. She's probably about 56 or something like that. That's kind of where I figured. In fact, we could probably figure that out from her dates and the appendices. But I didn't think she'd be that old here. Of course, Farad'n's very young, isn't he? Hmm. Taken, of course, with the Bene Gesserit, nothing is certain, and we certainly get that with Margot Fenring and Fade, don't we? Coruscant and Telex, who definitely played a long game. Yes, indeed. Julian Tubbs. Absorbing strength is a major win factor in the Imperium. And Carlos is saying accepting the Lady Jessica is like holding a tiger by the tail. Yes, indeed. There's so many anecdotes about bringing dangerous things into your house, and that you shouldn't do it really. Or if you are, if you're going, someone like that, be very nice to them. Simply put, if she needs asylum here, no problem. Give her the nicest suite. Get her servants, ask her if anything she needs, and just be as nice as pie, and have nobody piss this woman off under any circumstances. I don't know, far too ridiculously dangerous. Just with the use of her voice, could have your whole staff just killing themselves with any command at all. Extremely dangerous. Yeah, earplugs, headphones, that kind of thing. But that's just one aspect of them. But I do think of Jessica as absurdly dangerous in this in the Dune series. She's very, very, in terms of how deadly is the character, she's extremely dangerous. Certainly when you look at, and you kind of often wonder, she makes mincemeat of Stilgar. She's taught Paul, all the stuff, but generally, they often say with kind of things like that, is teachers often hold one thing back. They never teach everything. It's a thing to protect themselves, if you see what I mean. But yeah, holding a tiger by the tail, indeed, a very dangerous creature let into your house. Yeah, makes you think. Sometimes you kind of want it. Was it those old? Was it superhero comics do it a lot where you pair characters off? It's and have them fight to see who's the and do it like a little. I don't know. They used to want to always know who was the best, who would win in a fight like this kind of thing. But I'd be very curious to, if you did one of those, to set Jessica at the height of her abilities. For example, how would she do against Gurney Halleck? How would she do against Duncan Idaho? This kind of thing. I'd say she'd just wipe them out. No problem. And I think the only reason why Gurney's able to get her the way he does in Dune is because he's in one she's not expecting it. It's Gurney's very careful about what he does there, but at that point, Gurney's almost acting like an assassin, if you see what I mean. Julian said, Lady Jessica is a unique Bene Gesserit because she gives openly where most sisters hold back and use technique. Jessica was a radical in this. Yes, it's passing on techniques, isn't it? We get a sense that other Bene Gesserit women do the same. But it's very much so, I think, that these things aren't meant to be out in the public mind. They're not really meant to be for men, I think, particularly. But it's certainly, and I always think that the major, there's aspects of her character that I think that are quite interesting, and that as much as she's part of we talk about the Janice aspect, that she's a Janice aspect with Paul. There's a whole bunch of them with her, but in particular with Leto and the way that Frank Herbert inverts things in this book. Very much the character of Leto, I think, applies to her, as in the mythological Leto, the mother of Apollo and Artemis. There's something about Leto, about Jessica, if you see what I mean. But at the same time, I don't know. I think of Jessica as one of the most absolutely positive female characters I've ever read in any kind of book. Um, everything about her, that she's not a you know she's not perfect in any way. She's exceptionally intriguing and yeah, extremely dangerous, especially in this world. But I very much I'd say she's more dangerous politically than we're talking about physical abilities and martial abilities, these kind of things. But yeah, I think she's very, very politically astute. Um, I think it's partly to do with her training. And I suppose then if we do consider her own heritage, we tend to not really look at it too much. But who she is a product of are two of the top players in this entire universe. It's the Baron Harkonnen is her father, and her mother is the guy, Reverend Mother Gaius Helen Mohame. That's a set of genes to have, isn't it? Um, and they're in terms of all of the personalities that aren't House Atreides, all the different households and factions within the original Dune novel, the two largest personalities within it are Mohame, I think, and the Baron. And so, yeah, she's got a combination of that, plus all the Bene Gesserit training, and ultimately then Fremen training as well, and understanding. But yeah, very, very interesting character. Indeed. Mm. Cracking character is Jessica. Right, here we go. Farad'n experienced a shiver of excitement tinged with fear. There's always a kind of a juxtaposition with Farad'n here, isn't it? He's kind of excited by power, but slightly repelled by it. He wants it and he doesn't. There's the almost the back and forth with it. With the experience for him, a shiver of excitement tinged with fear. Playing this game, and again, that's an interesting. He looks at it as a game to restore House Corrino's high seat of power. Both attracted him and repelled him. There it is. Got to that. But how attractive it remained, the urge to retire from this game into his preferred pursuits, historical research, and learning the manifest duties for ruling here on Seleucus Secundus. The restoration of his Sardaukar forces was a task in itself, and for that job, Tyek was still a good tool. And there we have that word again. That's a hugely important word in these books. Tools. Human beings as tools. That's what Tyek is, a good tool. A good spanner. He's the tool for getting the Sardaukar up and running again, back to their former selves, if you like, their former strength. One planet was, after all, an enormous responsibility. But the Empire was an even greater responsibility far more attractive as an instrument of power. And the more he read about Muad'Dib Paul Atreides, the more fascinated Farad'n became with the uses of power. As titular head of House Corrino, heir of Shaddam IV, what a great achievement it would be to restore his line to the Lion Throne. He wanted that. He wanted it. Farad'n had found that by repeating this enticing litany to himself several times, he could overcome momentary doubts. So it's a good wee paragraph there, giving us a bit of insight into Farad'n. He's very much would have been quite happy to be a historian, happy enough to run his planet. Has a lot of power. I suppose the idea that those who have power ultimately want more power, don't they? Power begets more power, this kind of thing. Not to be content with ruling a planet. An empire's got more power than that. And it's not just power, but it's the uses of power. And yeah, he's come to desire it, hasn't he? He wanted that. This is what he wants. Tyekanik was speaking. This little process is kind of blotted out Tyekanik, if you like. And of course, the Bene Gesserit teach that peace encourages aggression, thus igniting war. the paradox of how do we get on this subject? Now, Tyekanik being cut off there is quite interesting because paradoxes, pardon me, are what Dune's all about, pretty much. They're hugely important. And so we talk about how Frank drops really important stuff in this book ever so subtly. He diverts you. Look at this. Well, that's going on across the bottom. That's another example. A little comment about paradoxes. Peace encourages aggression, thus igniting war. The paradox of. Wonder what he was going to say. It reminds you, I suppose, on what's the old phrase? The paradox of he who wants peace, let him prepare for war. That kind of thing. All right, there's a version of that by Plato, isn't there? Let's have a wee look. I should have scribbled that down here. Yeah, let's have a look just quickly to get the quote for you, folks. I think that one, the most famous one's a Roman quotation, but it's after Plato, isn't it? Let's see. Type it on here. There we go. He who wants peace must prepare for war. Who's that? Sivus Passum Parabellum. There we go. If you want peace, prepare for war. Adapted from a statement found in Roman author Publius Flavius Vegetius Renatus's tract De Re Militari, which is 4th and 5th century AD, in which the actual phrasing is Igitur qui desiderat pacem preparat bellum. Therefore, let him who desires peace prepare for war. The idea which it conveys also appears in earlier works such as Plato's Nomoi, which is laws. The phrase represents the insight that the conditions of peace are often preserved by a readiness to make war, to defend said peace when the need arises. If you have a look at it on Wikipedia, you'll see a whole bunch of variations of it and so on. Parabellum, prepare for war. Para has lots of different meanings, doesn't it? So you can technically interpret parabellum in different ways. I just always think it was beyond war would be a good interpretation of it. Joseph, just on the last comment there, I just saw I got to run. Don't forget the like button. Thank you very much, Joseph. Take it easy. We'll see you later. But thank you for reminding the audience there. Yeah, folks, if you want to feed the machine, you can give us a like or a subscribe if you like. I'll just catch up with the comments there. Atreides is saying the silent understanding that any Reverend Mother or Acolyte were the most dangerous humans in the room always stuck with me. Yeah, it's there's a great fight later on, and it's between a Bene Gesserit and a Tlanaxu, and it's like the literary equivalent of the Wild West gunfight, but all the tension, the build up, like a Sergio Leone film, and the whole chapter, and I think the whole thing takes place in like a couple of seconds. And it's the two of them sizing each other up. And but yes, indeed, the most dangerous thing in the room would arguably most always be a Bene Gesserit in this world, in this universe. Which is radical teaching reflects lines in the later books where Mother Superior wants Shanna and Marbella to act like Jessica did. Excellent, Atreides. Thank you. My memory of the later books is rubbish at the minute. I'm looking to hopefully get a wee read of them soon. Carlos is saying Farad'n always struck me as a strange combination of romantic and pragmatic nature. And then Joseph said he's got it wrong. Yeah, Farad'n's an interesting character. He reminds me. Oh dear. Oh, hang on, I'm mixing him up with someone else. Here, yeah, he kind of does remind me a wee bit on Faramir from Lord of the Rings. I don't think it's something to do with the name. Pardon me, but just in the way that things work out for Farad'n, if you like, his attitude. There's other, I don't know, there's other aspects to him as well. like most characters in this universe, who are within the I suppose the upper echelons of society, how you view the morality of these people is interesting. Farad's just as bad as everyone else. Um, Interestingly, in the next chapter, we're going to have a wee look at that, how morals are seen, how the Fremen are seen by outsiders, and how outsiders are seen by the Fremen, if you like, in relation to their morality, their ethics, their brutality, this kind of thing. It's to do with how Ganem is thinking that she is a proper Fremen because she can kill without guilt, this kind of thing. Right. How did we get on this subject? Farad'n asked, bringing his attention back from the arena of speculation. I like that. Nice little turn of phrase in a in a bit of a messy chapter. Why? Wensicia said sweetly, having noted the wool-gathering expression on her son's face, I merely asked if Tyek was familiar with the driving philosophy behind the sisterhood. Now, wool-gathering. Wool-gathering is an interesting word. It's a word that when I've read Brian Herbert's books, that he overuses massively. It's a funny expression, by the way. Frank Herbert's the main person that I know that uses it. Yeah. I quite like it, actually. It's an interesting expression. So I merely asked if Tyek was familiar with the driving philosophy behind the sisterhood. His response here. Philosophy should be approached with irreverence, Farad'n said, turning to face Tyekanik. In regard to Idaho's offer, I think we should inquire further. When we think we know something, that's precisely the moment when we should look deeper into the thing. Philosophy should be approached with irreverence. I don't agree with that at all. I don't necessarily mean that it should be approached with reverence. I don't know what some of you. I know some of you have studied a bit of philosophy here and there. My attitude is that philosophy should be approached with care. Yeah, maybe a little bit of reverence. Be careful around philosophy. It's a fascinating subject. It can be a very dangerous subject. There's a lot of crazy cookie philosophies out there, if you like, that didn't quite get there to getting that true love of wisdom. But wisdom is what you seek when you look for philosophy, if you like. So that was just I thought that this was I thought it was kind of a stupid comment to make from Farad'n's point of view. Irreverence, especially in light of what he's going to say later. In regard to Idaho's offer, I think we should inquire further. This is about asylum. When we think we know something, that's precisely the moment when we should look deeper into the thing. So still not enough information, basically. It will be done, Tyekanik said. He liked this cautious streak in Farad'n, but hoped it did not extend to those military decisions which required speed and precision. The cautious streak, caution is the Atreides trait, isn't it? So we're so often told within the Dune series is that the Atreides are cautious. It's the trait that's associated with them the most, I think. Whenever we look at the next chapter with Ganima, we'll see her exhibiting this trait as well. So it's the thing that Tyekanik likes here, is this cautious streak, but hopes it won't stop him from acting quickly, too cautious. So there's that's Hamlet's fatal flaw, isn't it? The inability to act. So there's probably a little bit of the student prince. There's probably a little bit of. I was going to say it's not Hamlet, is it? We're thinking on maybe here, though he wants, who would be More Fortinbras, isn't that it? Possibly this. Will he be more of a man of action? This Farad'n. With seeming irrelevancy, Farad'n asked, "Do you know what I find most interesting about the history of Arrakis? It was the custom in primitive times for Fremen to kill on sight anyone not clad in a stillsuit with its easily visible and characteristic hood." "What is your fascination with the stillsuit?" Tyekanik asked. "So you've noticed, eh?" "How could we not notice?" Wensicia asked. Farad'n sent an irritated glance at his mother again. Why did she interrupt like that? He returned his. Ah, dear. So you've noticed A as a question. How could we not notice? When Sissy asked. He sent an irritated glance at his mother. Why did she interrupt like that? She's not interrupting. He asked her a question. Well, it's Tyekanik, but the fact that she's not interrupting anybody here. She has not interrupted him. An interruption did not occur. So the question is he just getting irritated for being for the sake of it because he wants to get irritated at her? But he really isn't too happy with her, is he? But there is no interruption. What's your fascination with the stillsuit? So you've noticed it. How could we not notice? There's no maybe she's taking her turn in the conversation, but she hasn't cut anyone off there. Irritated glances. So here we go. This is the stillsuit. The stillsuit and the character of Dune is what I've written at the top of this page. So the stillsuit is the key to the planet's character tag. It's the hallmark of Dune. People tend to focus on the physical characteristics. The stillsuit conserves body moisture, recycles it, and makes it possible to exist on such a planet. You know, the Fremen custom was to have one stillsuit for each member of a family, except for the food gatherers. They had spares, but please note, both of you, he moved to include his mother in this, how garments which appear to be stillsuits, but really aren't, have become high fashion throughout the Empire. It's such a dominant characteristic for humans to copy the conqueror. Tyekanik says, "Do you really find such information valuable?" Tyekanik asked, his tone puzzled. Tyek, without such information, one cannot govern. I said the stillsuit was the key to their character, and it is. It's a conservative thing. The mistakes they make will be conservative mistakes. I'll just back up a wee bit and have a natter about this. The key to stillsuit is the key to the planet's character. So it gives us this, talks about the Fremen custom. So he's been doing his reading on this. Please note, both of you, how garments which appear to be stillsuits, but really aren't, have become high fashion throughout the Empire. It's such a dominant characteristic for humans to copy the conqueror. Mimesis, if you like, is what we're talking about here. Yes, it's that kind of thing that, the king wears a white silly wig, everybody else starts wearing them, We're not. I don't think we're too bad at that kind of thing the other day. But some people do follow fashion. If we see a celebrity wearing something, oh, I must go wear that. I must wear the latest thing. This kind of thing. I find it all quite amusing. I'm not a person that buys labels or anything like that. In fact, if you've got a big brand label all over the clothes, I'm more than likely not to buy them. I like plain clothes, But I hate giant logos on my clothing. Feel like you're advertising for people and not getting paid, eh? So the planet's character means the stillsuit was invented, really, possibly is a question I've asked to deal with this. But what we're talking essentially is mimesis here. Not even cheaply made or differently made. What we're saying is that they look like stillsuits. I'm trying to think of an example. I suppose it's like wearing, like a muscle T-shirt that makes, that has the muscle print on it, makes you look big, this kind of thing. But is actually you don't have any muscles. Stuff like that, tattoo sleeves, things that are just fake, but it's an attempt to mimic. Um, and I think mimesis is quite important in the Dune series. It's a very interesting concept. Um, and you could apply it to a lot of things in particular. I think within modern life, that we have going on in society these days. But yeah, mimesis is where you imitate something. And it's one of the ways that we learn actually is by mimesis as well. But can be taken to an extreme, like all things, I suppose. Without such information, one cannot govern. That's that's bollocks, as it is. And I suppose the point is going to be made in a minute, but without such information, one cannot govern. It's a very broad general statement. I don't agree with it at all, but he'll refine that statement, I think. Yeah, the stillsuit, the Fremen are conservatives. It's all about conservation. Only conservative, the small c. Conservative being essentially you store and build up what you have for today, if you like. You hoard things, if you like. And I suppose it tends not to sort of, it's about keeping stores and all sorts of things within the Fremen. I suppose storing water, everything about it, preservation of water. And the fact that the stillsuit is an incredibly sophisticated thing. If you're, I'll rephrase that. I don't like the words that the word sophisticated doesn't probably apply there. The stillsuit is an incredibly well engineered piece of equipment, and it speaks to the intelligence of the people who make it. Does that make sense? And their skills. Sophisticated is the wrong word entirely. And in fact, actually, as much as we called that mimesis, the people wearing stillsuits garments that appear to be stillsuits, in a funny sense, that's kind of sophistication in a funny kind of way, if you think about it. Right, let's see. So their mistakes, they'll be conservative mistakes. If they're a conservative people, that's what the stillsuit tells us. Therefore, they will make conservative mistakes. And I've written down next to that they'll make other mistakes as well. But that's the viewpoint. He's trying to get a sense on the character, of the Fremen and the planet they live on. This is a change, isn't it? We've got a term that we're going to get used for the Fremen in the next chapter, which is going to be a really interesting one, because ultimately, I think one of the end terms that we have for the Fremen is called the Museum Fremen. But we've got an absolute cracking one here, the lace shirt Fremen, in the next chapter. I think it's brilliant. And ultimately, we kind of sort of said about within the God Emperor of Dune, the association with the Museum Fremen and say Northern Ireland, for example, and certain communities here, and other cultures around the world where you have people imitate their ancestors who they view as great, dress in their clothing, claim their victories, and act as if they're those people in many ways. And we get a lot of that here in Northern Ireland, interestingly enough, Tyekanik glanced at Wensicia, who was staring at her son with a worried frown. The characteristic of Farad'n's both attracted and worried the Bashar. The attraction and worry, attraction and repulsion, this kind of thing. Now, it was so unlike Shaddam. Now, there had been an essential Sardaukar, a military killer with few inhibitions. Now, I've got another one here, big howler of a mistake by the looks of it. But Shaddam had fallen into the Atreides under the damnable Paul. I'm wondering what anybody's got for that one. That doesn't make sense to me. But Shaddam had fallen into the Atreides under the damnable Paul. I think there's a word missing there. Um, Probably the word trap. If I would say, but Shaddam had fallen into the Atreides trap under the damnable Paul. Perhaps I don't know if anybody can help me with that one. I will just check your comments here quickly, folks. Pardon me, and see how we're doing. Where do we get to? Teaching reflects lines in later books more superior ones. Shanna and Mirabelle to act like Jessica did. Let's see. Constantine Farad'n always struck me. I've probably read a couple of these again. As a strange combination of romantic and pragmatic nature. Joseph is off. Atreides said he was the Corrino that learned. He adapted how the Atreides ruled by the heart, or at least by their definitions of it. Was it a quality Leto II wanted? It's interesting because it seems that the secondary attribute of the Corrino family. I've been looking into the name Corrin a wee bit in terms of etymology just to see what we could come up with because I was kind of curious. It's an Irish name. It's also a Manx name as well. But let me see. I was actually thinking that it might have been. I've been trying to find a bit of a connection between Corinth and them as well, but I actually don't think that that's the case. And I always kind of went with the fact that the Corrinos sounded kind of Italian, but they're the one family that's been trickiest to find the genealogy on. He's a Corrino that learned. He adapted how the Atreides ruled by the heart, or at least by their definition of it. Was it a quality Leto II wanted? I think Farad'n is, in relation to what Farad'n's like, I think it's quite important. It is the qualities. I can't remember too much. I'm going through this at the minute. Atreides one chapter at a time. Not trying. I've done a wee bit of work on the next chapter, but we weren't going to. We were hoping to do it tonight, and that's the only reason why I'm sort of mentioning some stuff from the next chapter. But as I recall, Farad'n holds himself pretty well against the Leto II at the end of this book, and it's the qualities that, yeah, he is an interesting character, isn't he? It's his qualities. Really, I think that's why it makes me think of Faramir a bit. The quality, as we put it, of the quality of Faramir, the quality of Farad'n, almost. But yes, but what I was thinking about is that it's almost a natural secondary attribute of the Corrinos to be historians, isn't it? To be those kind of writers. And we see that kind of almost in a. It's almost that. What was it? Sort of Irulan had some literary ambitions. I suggest you turn to them. Maybe that wasn't quite, but it certainly seems that that's where Farad'n's head is. In terms of history. It could be the sort of sense that that's where he learns from to take on his role, if you like. The royals tend to learn this kind of sense of their own history, if you like. But yeah, I think so. It's a good point, Atreides. Thank you very much. Somebody said Farad'n is still, but we'll investigate further, I suppose, when we get there. Farad'n is still under the self-imposed spell of wanting power, and he's treating his mother with irreverence. His comment is more to do with Wensicia than philosophy, in my honest opinion. Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you. Cynthia, just backing up to read it again. I merely asked if Tyke was familiar with the driving philosophy behind the sisterhood. Philosophy should be approached with irreverence. I don't know. It's an odd thing to say. Is it that Wensicia has reverence for this philosophy, that kind of thing? But based on what he's talking about, the stillsuit, the key to the planet's character, etc., the key to the Fremen. With the Bene Gesserit, I suppose we could look at them in the same way, couldn't we? What aspects of the Bene Gesserit tell us about their character, and most likely their philosophy, which is twisted. Well, isn't it? It's a what's the truth behind it and what's the reality is always an interesting thing with the Bene Gesserit, isn't it? Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, more to do with Wensicia than philosophy, in my honest opinion. Yeah, reverence or irreverence. I think philosophy is just. I think it's an interesting subject. I love it. Absolutely adore philosophy, and it's a subject populated with a lot of the philosophers that I looked at are ancient world ones, and they're all cookie as hell. They're hilarious. Some really interesting people with really, really interesting minds. My favorite group to look at is called what we call the pre-Socratics. Um, that people like Thales, Anaximander, Heraclitus, Pythagoras is a pre-Socratic. They're a bunch of loons. They really are. Um, Absolutely wonderful thinking people in a world where we didn't know stuff. How their minds get to where they get to. Obviously they're before Socrates, but you can kind of consider that they were so close to kind of having a kind of scientific method that their ideas are actually. If you read about these guys, you'll find that a lot of their ideas are actually many years later have been refined and turned out to be kind of true, if you like, in many ways. They're fascinating bunch. But yeah, but there's lots of cookie people. That's the ones that I know quite well. There's all sorts of philosophers over the years, all sorts of philosophy. It's a very interesting subject. There's a lot of cookie stuff in there too. So approach it. I always think approach it with great interest, but approach it with care and discard what you tend not to find is not wise. If that makes sense. If you're reading philosophy and it strikes you as not being very wise, then it probably isn't good philosophy. That's the way I would go about it. And yet, to be wise, one has to be, truly foolish. Oh dear. Sorry, let me see. My text says, but Shaddam had fallen to the Atreides under that damnable pall. Here we go again, Cynthia. Right, thank you so much. Where are we? Get on this. Let me just look side back a bit, isn't it? Let me see. Bear with me a wee second. Thank you. A bit of gabbing there. I've lost my place. I'm sure I've got a wee thing somewhere else. Sorry, sorry, bear with me a wee second, folks. Here we go. 36. Right, let's see. Sorry about that, folks. Just bear with me. Shaddam had fallen into the Atreides under the damnable pall. Hang on. To the Atreides. That's it. Under that damnable pall. That's it. That makes sense. I've got into. Had fallen into the Atreides under the fallen to the Atreides. Thank you very much. Correct it in book and notes. It should be 2. It is the word 2. Score that out. There we go. They're howlers this week, aren't they? They really are. It's just that the mistakes in my copy are genuinely confusing meaning, aren't they? They're not horrific, but they're not good. Yeah, they're just starting to make me laugh now. Thank you very much. Yes, Julian, it's the comment that I made right at the start. There's something not right about this. This chapter is not well written. I'm not a person that sits and slags off Frank's writing, but my little note at the very beginning, just to show you, up here on the top. Let me see if you can see how that is not good writing here. Some of these mistakes are quite possibly publishing errors, but no, that the writing doesn't flow well. There's odd little mistakes. We had a howler actually. Yeah, it's coming up. A couple more to go yet. But we'll not worry about it too. As I said, it's good to spot them. We are annotating this thing, and it's good that we've got different chapters or different copies of the book to work with, But the writing in this chapter does feel unfocused. I agree, and I was wondering, is that part of it? Is it there's a certain difficulty in trying to knit together elements of a story that you started writing in pretty much, where are we? 63, go back, what, 5 years, 6 years? So probably 1958, roughly. And then you're tidying up, but you've conceived this story in three different books, but it's still taking you a good chunk of years to get to. Is it an attempt to knit things and edit and change? Maybe this character was a bit different back then when I first conceived of that thing, but at the same time, we've clearly got an entirely different master manuscript in the Berkeley editions. And what's bizarre to me is that it seems that the editions certainly that we're looking at I can't quite understand where the mistakes are coming from, because they look like there's things that have been added to the text or missing that have been. It looks like someone's mucked around with this. Unless it's simply put that these are just the original mistakes in these manuscripts, and there must be more than one manuscript, and something's happened to one. But I don't see how the manuscripts would differ. It's a little bit of a mystery to me. You can get things, I suppose, in publishing where probably something's gone wrong with the markup. But the fact that we're all reading the same story, and we've even said, even with Dune Messiah, that there's an entirely, there's three different ways that the book can begin, depending on which one you've got. It is a bit bizarre. Julian said the Corrino cultural influence seemed either later Byzantine or the early Persian to the Atreides Greek. See, I've often thought about, there's so much of the Greek stuff in there. Would we head down into the sort of cultural myths of Corinth, this kind of thing? Would that be a suggestion that it's the ancestor? Is it Corin though is the original thing? So the Corrino is a word that's developed out of that. But there is an old, Corin's an old Irish name. It's an old Manx name. You'll find it in Scotland too. I know people call Corin. It's a not too uncommon name here. But again, always looking at stuff. But then I think it's one of those names where I was doing a wee bit of looking at it actually the other night. It's one of those names where I suppose in Ireland we've had lots of invasions here, but one of them was the Viking invasions. We've had the Vikings, we've had the Normans, we've had all sorts. We've had the English and the Scotch, and apart from the sort of English and Scots plantations, everybody always got absorbed into Irish culture. Our invaders came here and became Irish, which I always thought was quite funny, But it's a pretty common name. What was that? Something went ping pong there. Oh, it must have been my phone that's in the room. Sorry about that, folks. It's still it's the one kind of family name. We'll find plenty on the Harkonnens. We'll find plenty on the we know tons about the Atreides. House Corrino, if you like. There was always a bit of a wonder what that's all about there. Julian said Farad'n might be one of the last people to intellectually at least learn about Fremen as a living culture. We're beginning to see the Fremen becoming archaic. There's Chaya Rivka saying shalom, all shalom, Chaya. Very good to see you. Thank you very much for joining us. It's the drifting away from the hardship of life. They're becoming soft. They're kind of, I suppose, they're going to live off the fruits of the victories of Muad'Dib and the Fremen, etc. And they'll arguably live in a reasonably peaceful time at this point, I suppose, where everybody's sort of, I'd say arguably that one of the best places to live during the reign of Paul, Muad'Dib is on Arrakis because everyone else is getting the jihad. But we get a sense of stuff that's been done to Seleucus Secundus as well. What's happening with the Fremen, as much as Julian's pointing it, is also happening to the Sardaukar. They're all becoming soft. And yes, becoming archaic. Hey, it's where the trappings of, you know, our ancient ancestors. This kind of thing. We claim credit for their deeds. See that kind of association, we get quite a lot of it here. But in some ways, you can get stuff where it's quite innocent. You can get things like people who just do historical reenactments and stuff for the fun of it, for the sense of the history of it. That's one thing. But we in Northern Ireland, I suppose, within the Unionist community, particularly with the Loyalist community, marching, for example, dressing a certain way, holding up the banners of different lodges, or commemorating all these battles and stuff of William of Orange, this kind of thing. And it's hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and it's the idea is that they're still rubbing that victory into people's faces, this kind of thing, and that we fought and killed 300-400 years ago, therefore we have a right to do this. It's an interesting thing. The main skill is walking. There you go. But it's an interesting thing, and as I said, that whenever we get to God Emperor, and certainly with Frank's Irish connections and Frank's thinking at the time, I've often thought that what ends up happening to the Fremen, pardon me, is a very similar thing to what's happened to the certainly the Protestant community within Northern Ireland as well. As a link to tradition and all of these kind of things, ritual. And it's interesting, but it's become a thing that the Protestant loyalist community clings to so hardly, so hard, not hardly, so hard. It's become really important to them, but it's a constant. The real problem with it, as I'm sure we'll find out, is they're always looking back, and there's no forward movement. I've talked to you about one of the reasons why Northern Ireland does not produce science fiction writers. we do horror, we do crime, we do all of that stuff, we do fantasy, but generally, and I keep going to Comic-Cons and things and questing. I'm looking for them. We don't produce science fiction writers, period, because we're a society that does not look forward. Both of our communities look backward, which is not good, But there's others. Our culture is not the only one. There's plenty of cultures like that, I suppose. But a lot of cultures just celebrate their heritage in that way and have a wee, that kind of thing. But it's very much old wars and long dead, that kind of thing. But yeah, dressing up. Oh dear. No, oh, sorry, I flipped back a wee bit, didn't I, to fix something? Yes, Chaya, we've been hitting so many mistakes in this chapter tonight. It's been a bit of a. We're saying it's not a good chapter in terms of reading. It doesn't flow well. There's all sorts of things here. Yeah, that's where. But Shaddam had fallen to the Atreides under the damnable Paul. Indeed, what he read of Paul Atreides revealed that just such characteristics as Farad'n now displayed. It was possible that Farad'n might hesitate less than the Atreides over brutal necessities, but that was his Sardaukar training. That's Tyekanik's thinking there. I don't agree with that at all. I think he's obviously underestimating Paul here, or possibly overestimating Farad'n. The suggestion there is that compared to Paul, that he'd be happy to be a bit more brutal because of his Sardaukar training. Now, Tyekanik says many have governed without using this kind of information. Tyekanik said. So this is back to the. Just sorry, prior to that, we had Tyekanik asking, "Do you really find such information valuable?" And Farad'n said, "Without such information, one cannot govern." Um, Came across as a bit of a general statement. Don't agree with that at all, but I suppose it's going to be refined here. So he's saying many have governed without using this kind of information. Farad'n merely stared at him for a moment, then governed and failed. And I've written again, no in general, but yes to Shaddam, and if that's what he's talking about, that is what he's talking about. Tyekanik's mouth drew into a stiff line at this obvious allusion to Shaddam's failure that had been a Sardaukar failure too, and no Sardaukar could recall it easily. It's as if that, so what there's a couple of suggestions there, is that the Sardaukar have kind of collectively blocked it out of their minds. No Sardaukar could recall it easily, their failure. And it's Shaddam's failure. Not understanding I suppose that's where he's going, not understanding the people that he governs, not understanding what's the key to, particularly with Arrakis, as it's the key to the universe's economy here, what's the key, to really understanding it. And that's why he failed. Tyekanik's mouth drew into a stiff line at the obvious allusion to Shaddam's failure. He's not happy about that. My question came up with this one. There had been a Sardaukar failure too, and no Sardaukar could recall it easily. My question was, how many Sardaukar got off Arrakis? Because when reading Dune, I got the general sense that apart from those immediately around the Emperor, that they were all to be killed on sight. My impression was that virtually no Sardaukar, again, I'm not sure if this is right, it was going back a wee bit, virtually no Sardaukar got off Arrakis. At the same time, I don't think all of the Emperor's legions were there. I need to check that again. I don't know if anybody can remember. But at the same time, they must have had men on other planets and stuff like that. So we have to assume that there's plenty of them still about. And they haven't been doing any fighting for anybody, for some time, really, have they? At least, since probably the last time the Sardaukar have seen action in this universe is 18 years previously, where they get their butts kicked by the worms. So, having made his point, Farad'n said, "You see, Tyke, the influence of a planet upon the mass unconsciousness of its inhabitants has never been fully appreciated. To defeat the Atreides, we must understand not only Caladan but Arrakis, one planet soft and the other a training ground for hard decisions. That was a unique event, that marriage of Atreides and Fremen. We must know how it worked, or we won't be able to match it, let alone defeat it." And again, within that sense of the Fremen wearing, people wearing clothes that make them look like they're wearing Fremen stillsuits. The idea of mimesis again is here, but it's the unique event, that marriage of Atreides and Fremen. We must know how it worked, or we won't be able to match it. We want to match it. We want to mimic it, let alone defeat it. We need to know what they know. We need to know how to be like that. Does that make sense? The little comment of the influence of a planet upon the mass unconsciousness has never been fully appreciated. I don't know. I think it's very much that your environment has an effect on you, no matter the country that you live in, wherever you're at, that kind of thing. To have a planet that's kind of one, pretty much. How would I put it? One kind of, is it biome? Is that it? Is that the term I'm looking for? It's just desert. It's going to affect you. Obviously, it'll have a big impact on your mind. But just the allusion to a collective unconsciousness there, again, is interesting to note. So Not only Caladan but Arrakis, one planet soft and the other a training ground for hard decisions. That was a unique event, right? The interesting thing, I suppose, about it, the idea of soft and hard planets, if you like. Seleucus Secundus is meant to be a really hard planet. It's also a former home of the Fremen, and it's the training ground for the Sardaukar because it's meant to be, something similar to Arrakis. It's a vicious training ground. So that point's interesting. What does this have to do with Idaho's offer when Wensicia demanded? Now, I've got a problem with this response here. Farad'n glanced pitying down at his mother. Now, that's bad grammar. I'll just read the next bit and then I'll jump back. We begin their defeat by the kinds of stress we introduce into their society. That's a very powerful tool. Stress and the lack of it is important too. Did you not mark how the Atreides helped things grow soft and easy here? Now, that's pretty important. A way of keeping this. So what the Atreides have done is the gist that I'm getting there is that they've also kind of looks like they've tried to turn Seleucus Secundus into a nice place to live as well. Make it soft. I don't know if that's the case with the whole planet or just where Farad'n and his palace, Castle Corrin happened to be. But I got that sense, that the Atreides have made things easy for House Corrino on Seleucus Secundus, thereby making life easy for the Sardaukar, and it's a great way of defanging your enemy, isn't it? It's makes them soft, makes them fat, makes them weak. That idea. He's saying the same analogy, I suppose, in the people wearing these clothes, these shirts, if you like, that are just clothing in general that looks like still suits that aren't. With again this tough planet that he's on, where it's making them, it's helping make his men soft. But the stress and the lack of it is important too. So the Atreides haven't been piling stress onto House Khan. They've been letting them, it seems that they've been pretty nice to them, but for a reason. Tyekanik allowed himself a curtain. Oh, sorry, back up here. Right, okay. Farad'n glanced pitying. Could somebody check their text there for me? Farad'n glanced pitying down at his mother. Now, I have a real problem with that. Glance is a verb, right? So that word that follows that, pitying is an adjective. That needs to be an adverb. It should be Farad'n glanced pityingly down at his mother. I'm wondering, folks, could you just check that one for me? Because that's a howler as far as if you're a professional writer, that's a howler to me. Using an adverb, using an adjective when an adverb should be used, and it reads badly, doesn't it? It just glanced pitying down at his mother. It's not right. So if anybody could just check that for me, pityingly. So it's not Frank's. It's a thank you. See, I'm sitting wondering, is this Frank being a bad writer? And it's clearly not, is it? In some of these cases, why has this been changed again? Don't know. But someone's that you've got. So that's correct. That's what it should be. Thank you. Bonkers, this, isn't it? It really. It's adjective should be an adverb. Pityingly is what I've written here on my notes. All right, let's get the book and change it. Then it is pityingly. Thank you very much. Yeah, this is a bad chapter just in terms of whatever's happened to it. There are things that don't flow. There's mistakes in it, but there's, typographical errors left, right, and center. Public. It's got to be something to do with the publishers, really. I'm not inclined to blame Frank for a lot of this. There's some things that I will blame him for, but it's really not this, But there we go. Thank you very much. Let me just jump back. It was we're heading near the end there. I'll quickly catch up with your comments there. Julian saying, if anyone wants to know how awful Ireland's nostalgia problem is, read the Hades and Cyclops chapter in Ulysses. Very good. Yeah, that's yeah, nostalgia, isn't it? It's a good way of putting it, isn't it? In a sense, but it's nostalgia plus mimesis. But yes, with even with the Anglo-Irish kind of, even with that. The Anglo-Irish, the big Irish literary revival and stuff like that. You get that in the works of our poets and artists and all sorts of things. You got it in Irish politics right up until the 60s. The politicians had the idea here that the Irish peasant digging a spud is a noble thing, and God, let's sit in our little Dublin tea rooms and look at them and admire their nobility. It's quite sick, to be honest with you. But yes, indeed, the different cultures that have sort of emerged here. But and we've got a thousand years of couple of thousand years of myths. Pardon me. Um, but we're a pretty ancient society here, we've been Ireland's been having a sort of problem with the English very much on and off for close to 1,000 years. It's not far off. It's close to 800, isn't it? But we've got buildings here in Ireland that are older than the pyramids and older than Stonehenge. So in term, we're yeah, pretty ancient society, and we've had the kind of rather good fortune to have our DNA mixed up a good bit with people who invaded. I've always kind of wondered why they just stayed when they there must have been something about it, but the Viking families that moved here assimilated into Irish culture. None of apart from the English, the plantations and stuff like that, the beginning of the British Empire. But every invader of Ireland has assimilated into our culture, not the other way around. Which I've always thought was quite cool. We've always thought it's kind of funny. Normans came here, didn't stay Norman. They kind of became Irish. The Vikings came here and they became Irish. You so we have a lot of that within our language and place names and stuff like that as well. And family names as well. You can identify the old Anglo-Irish, sorry, the old Irish Normans by their names. They often include Fitz. For you get people like Fitzgibbons, Fitzsimmons, those kind of names. Very much Irish Norman. The town I used to live in when I was growing up was Larne. Its old name is Laharna. It's a Viking town. Like my badge and my school blazer used to be a Viking longship. As you head into the ports here, there's a kind of big, I don't know, it's kind of like a longship. Not sure, maybe a sailing ship kind of statue as well. Pardon me, folks. Right, I'll catch up with your comments, but I'll get some juice here. All right. Yeah, Ulysses. It's pretty much the Odyssey in Dublin, isn't it? In a funny way. It's an interesting thing. So Cynthia saying in June we read that the Sardaukar were overwhelmed by an enemy, the attacking sandworms. They had no comprehension of Arrakis is more than a training ground. It has unique, inimitable forces. That's a very good way of putting it. That's a crucible to crush them, isn't it? And then my text is Farad'n glanced pityingly down at his mother. Johnson, as Doc said, Christopher Tolkien would not stand for this. Yeah, it's something? I've actually almost considered doing a comparison. Three big properties, and if you like, we've got and what's been done to them. Pardon me. To see the Lord of the Rings, all of J.R.R. Tolkien's work on Middle Earth, his work on languages and the culture, all of that. For those of you who are Lord of the Rings fans, most of that stuff you would not have without Christopher Tolkien's work. I worked with his father as well, and it's incredibly respectful work. It's so well done. And gee, I wish somebody maybe and it amounted to a lifetime of work for him. But in terms of editors on the planet, Christopher Tolkien probably had as much respect as anyone could have. And to be an academic editor as well, I think is a very interesting thing. But certainly what he did with his father's books, fine tooth comb. What we have here is a literary series in a similar vein to The Lord of the Rings that is as popular as The Lord of the Rings, arguably, as beginning to get its reverence where it's due. It's getting its certainly considered being literature now. Though I've always thought it that way, and it's starting to get academic notice because of that. It's a serious piece of quality work. We've got an estate in charge of it, and it's pumping out crap after crap after crap to milk this shit out of it, basically. At the same time, to throw out these books for sale and not do a damn thing to fix some of this stuff. And I don't know, it almost seems like some of these things have been sabotaged. How some of the mistakes have happened. I can understand how pityingly became pitting, but where did those two, in terms of the master manuscript markup and all of that kind of thing, where did those letters go? What happened to them? What's going on? But it's almost as if someone has. And again, we can't blame Frank for this. We should, with publishing, we should have an editor in place. To check things, to fix things. We should have quality control. I'd happily tell you there's a few mistakes in my PhD, and I went bonkers looking for them, and we're not allowed to get a second set of eyes onto the. I must have done a damage control error looking for mistakes, probably about 10 whole reads. And then at the end of it, I goggle out. I know that if there's a mistake there, I'm not going to see it anymore because I've just, you often need a fresh set of eyes at this. But in all honesty, whatever the hell's going on with these books across different publications, including modern ones, there's something quite dodgy about it. I would, and especially when people are selling, there are certain editions. You can see that the fact that the copies of Dune are available in all sorts of publishing houses. Some people are selling out. Let's sell out a high quality edition that's in charge a fortune for it, and it's still most likely to be riddled with all of these mistakes. And again, the sheer amount of second-hand copies probably that are out there in the world. I used to judge a second-hand bookshop by if it had a Frank Herbert Dune book in it, and I'm not joking, and that's in the United Kingdom. I almost always see a copy in there. But if we're going to move forward with these books and to a new audience, new generation, new readership, then someone really does need to fix these. It's because it's a real shame. And as I said, sometimes it got frustrating. It's got to the point now, as I've said to you, I consider it a literary embarrassment. I'd be ashamed if I published these books. I would if I was an owner of a publishing company that had any kind of more sense about it, I'd want to know who done this, and I'd want them fired. Does that make sense? And I'd bring someone in to fix this. These books, we're going to keep selling these books to people. Of course, they're going to keep selling. Frank Herbert's reputation is going to continue to grow as time goes by. The respect that the books have, well, even just the first few, will not necessarily say about the whole series. And it's a common thing. The amount of books written that have come out of the Herbert estate, if you like, by Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson, continue to dilute, and alter things that his father has written about. There seems so little respect for the work, to be honest with you. That's my main problem. And as I said, if I wrote this book and sent it out, and I'd actually be, if I was having to meet, if I was a new author and my book had been published like this, I'd be affronted. and I'd be apologizing to anybody who bought it. I'm sorry there's so many mistakes in it and this kind of thing. I hope it doesn't bother your enjoyment of the story. But I'll have serious considerations. And again, I don't know. It makes sense to me that the original books get published a certain way, and then if we want to republish and sell on other rights, that we're going to forward those manuscripts for markup to go to publishing. So what's happening? It's just that it's the range of mistakes, stuff missing, stuff added, stuff completely gone, characters' names wrong. It almost seems like literary sabotage, and I don't think it is, but it's quite bad. Anyway, we'll push on quickly here. Yeah, Christopher Tolkien would not stand for it. If we had somebody, it'd be great to have somebody of that quality just hit these books and fix them. Romantic Ireland's dead and gone. It's with O'Leary in the grave. I disagree. There's nothing but romantic in this country. It's full of romance. I don't know. We're pretty romantic people, I think. But romance is a bit different than nostalgia for myths that actually have been altered, for an Ireland that never existed in some ways. I read that they found Irish DNA in Egyptian mummies. Yeah, we've been down as far as Egypt, and that was in coracles and stuff like that. So there's evidence of the Irish down that way. We've got around a bit, if you see what I mean. Oh, big love, hello. Could you bear with me 1 second, folks? And we'll just we're heading to the seat of my big pooch here. What's up with you, love? Do you need out? Hello? Oh, sorry about that, folks. I had to pop the doggies out into the garden now. My wife's sleeping there, so hopefully they won't be too barky, but I'll have to run and bring them in a wee minute or two. Right, let's see. Sorry about that. Yeah, we got a wee bit distracted there, didn't we? Christopher Tolkien was staff. Hello McSpeech says, I do like elements of the Brian Herbert, Kevin J. Anderson expanded universe, but it's too action heavy, not enough philosophy. My big problem is that it wrecks things. Dilutes and pollutes, I think, but they've directly contradicted Frank in terms of actually the entire backstory of the Dune universe, and that's what I have a real problem with. Alternative universe Dune, I think, maybe is the best way of thinking about it. But I've read the three. Was it House Atreides, House Harkonnen, House Corrino, and I've read Sandworms of Dune and Hunters of Dune. So yeah, and I think that was it. It's a franchise, and and I kind of prefer to move on to new things, having a speech, But there's plenty of other good stuff to read, But my major problem with it is as you say, not enough philosophy, but the other side of it is it's what I call what's called the authorial voice, is it doesn't sound right. I'd say Frank's got a lot of very, very little specific little traits as a writer, that he does things very, very well. His epigraphs, this kind of thing, he can sound a lot smarter sometimes than he is, if you like. I get the exact opposite effect with Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson's work. The books read fine; they're fine, well written and stuff like that. But they're essentially they're essentially the antithesis of what Frank was trying to do with Dune. He wanted to get away from pulpy, mass-produced, all of the kind of stuff that he saw. The negative sides of science fiction. He wanted to demonstrate that science fiction could be proper, good literature, and he put the time in. My understanding is that one of their last books that they wrote took them 30 days. When you compare Frank's work to 5 years on the first book, 5 years to write a book, 30 days, doing it with voice tech, this kind of thing, I imagine. I suppose it's one of those things you get out of something what you put in, don't you? But they're not horrific or anything, but they do mess with things quite badly. And sometimes it's hard enough to wrap your head around the things in Dune, as we've found here, Sorry, we'll just run on to the end of the chapter here. We're not too far to go. So did you not mark how the Atreides helped things grow soft and easy here? Tyekanik allowed himself a curt nod of agreement. That was a good point. The Sardaukar could not be permitted to grow too soft. This offer from Idaho still bothered him, though. He said, perhaps it'd be best to reject the offer. Not yet, Wensicia said. We've a spectrum of choices open to us. Our task is to identify as much of the spectrum as we can. My son is right. We need more information. It's nice to hear about information for a change instead of data within the Dune universe. But info is what they need. And she is correct. And I was kind of wondering, is she pandering to him here? Farad'n stared at her, measuring her intent as well as the surface meaning of her words. But will we know when we've passed the point of no alternative choice? He asked. Pardon me. A sour chuckle came to Tyekanik. If you ask me, we're long past the point of no return. Farad'n tipped his head back to laugh aloud. But we still have alternative choices, Tyek. When we come to the end of our rope, that's an important place to recognize. Very good. There is wisdom in Farad'n after all. Yes, indeed. It's an interesting little chapter. Quite short. Absolutely horrific for some of the mistakes in this chapter. Possibly one of the worst ones we've had for just wrecking meaning, if you see what I mean. And they are silly little mistakes, aren't they? But the very second paragraph, someone's added the word "kill" to this manuscript. Yeah, what's going on? I'd love an answer. It's a mystery to me, to be honest with you, But it's a very interesting chapter. It does remind me of that little triumvirate of the Baron, Fade, and Piter right at the beginning of Dune. We get a similar warning in this chapter. So again, this kind of repetition of theme and motif, many have governed without using the kind of information they have governed and failed. It reminded me of many men have tried, they've tried and died. That bit as well. I don't know what to think sometimes there. But I end up actually almost criticizing Frank here because I'm sitting going, we've got pitying. I'm going, Frank's used an adjective instead of an adverb, and that's a bit of a howler for a professional writer. And then, of course, we realise, as it Cynthia points out, it's pityingly in the other texts. So it's I'm just finding the whole thing very, very bizarre. Anyway, that's the end of that chapter, folks. As I said, we were supposed to go with chapter 29 tonight, but I was having a wee bit of a chat with about the start of the program. The reason why we didn't is we've got a kind of research node within it that we're investigating fully. We haven't been able to get an answer for it yet, but it's sent us spiraling into the ancient world. And I've been reading, trying to identify the person, and I suppose that Ganon is going to be talking about in the next chapter. We've got a few terms in here that I've managed to get them all. There's no problem there. But the knowing nothing of Joff, know where Joff is, the name of the planet where Sennacherib and the priestess had faded into dust. I know where Sennacherib is. I know who Sennacherib is, and I know what planet he's on. He's here. It's this planet. It's trying to find this priestess of Joff. So there's stuff there to do with Sennacherib. There's also, and I'm looking at some of the women from the ancient world, and I think I might have a candidate from Joff as a queen, not a priestess. But anyway, I'm hoping that the reason why I'm not running with chapter 29 tonight is I want to investigate further so that I can get A, peace of mind for myself, know what we're talking about, and B, hopefully inform you guys. I've had a look at a few people working this problem on the internet, and I don't think anybody's got a solution to it. As such, I'm just with Frank's work and research and knowledge, and as I said, Frank is if we think about when he's writing, Frank is a library man. I'd probably argue that whatever, it's probably a university library that he goes to get a lot of his stuff out of. I'm not too sure what American libraries are like. Certainly my town or local libraries here, you'd have to go to a big city library to get some of the books that Frank's been working with. But what I'm going to do is I'm investigating. I've done my work in Herodotus pretty much. I've had a look at Semiramis and now it could be an example of Frank getting his research wrong, because we had an example of that a couple of weeks back, didn't we? With a wrongly attributed quote. We're being nice about it. I'm saying it's possible that he's trying to show us the flaw of historians, but I actually don't really buy that. Let's see. Oddly enough, Semiramis is in section 185 line of book 1, and then what do you call them? Sennacherib is actually on page 185. There you go. How's that? Virtually nothing. Very, very little on Sennacherib within Herodotus. Just a wee bit. As for the lady queens, where are they? So Semiramis, the two queens that we're looking at possibly. The other one was Nitocris, Nitocris. She's 5 generations after Semiramis. Semiramis is also equated with another. Now, again, I don't think these are the right people to look at, to be honest with you. Simply put, their dates don't line up. Though the kind of sense of the character, Semiramis is often associated with Shamiramat. I really pronounced that pretty well without even thinking about it. Again, she's getting closer. But I've been investigating. I'm looking at a queen from Joff. Well, hopefully for next time. So I'm hoping to figure out what this other memory relating to Sennacherib is. I had a bit of fun with it. I ended up reading some Lord Byron's poetry and stuff today. But I just want to get it for you so we can figure out if there's always a bit more to these things with Frank, And I do enjoy chasing them down, And I think, was it Cynthia said she's going to have a word with her husband, see if he can help us with this one. But Priestess of Jouth in relation to Sennacherib, it's got me. I suppose the next thing for me, I've gone through my Herodotus, I've looked through the Jewish Encyclopedia, read up some Wikipedia stuff, looked at some articles on Semiramis, and looked at the article that we was out today from Semiramis of Babylon. That's the other one that I think Cynthia had recommended. So I'm running through as much as I can. There's quite a lot on some of these people, but I think I'm going to grab a couple of encyclopedias and fish them out, just to see. And I'm probably going to have to hit the Old Testament because Sennacherib's in there a fair bit, isn't he? So it's possible it's a Bible reference. It's possible, but I'm not getting a Greek reference for it. So we're going to have to look at various. I don't know. There's possibly a couple of Roman historians we could look at, but they're much later, and therefore their work is going to be less reliable. But we're looking for where Frank gets his idea from, if you like, and that's hopefully. So that's why we'll go with that chapter next week. And if so, I think it will be a short chapter, but I think we'll have plenty to talk about. Because it's a great chapter, by the way, and it's Ganima being an absolute badass. I think I've just written "Deadly Ganima Atreides" at the top. That's what I've called the chapter so far. We're talking about Jessica being deadly. I don't know. Sometimes when you get criticism of the female characters in this book, people have no idea at all, do they? Excuse me, folks. I'll tell you what. I have to go, says something. I have to do the same thing, folks. It's after midnight. My dogs are barking. I better go bring them in. So I'll say very quickly good night, and we'll be back next time. So we'll see you in a week, Tuesday at 10 for chapter 29. Thank you very much. Sorry about this. Gotta go. All the best, folks. Chat to you soon. Bye bye. Oh, you bad girls.